last wisdom, in case we get too forgetful, is if it takes place in time and space, look closer. Think it through in the soul realm first, to take it out of the illusion. Now we're all going back into time and space. Some will hold on to a few facts, and I think it's possible to eclipse the concept of being a mortal being in a material body. I think it's possible to be aware of the fact that while you're in time, you are non-existent. While you're in time, whatever you do, no matter how it appears to you, it is of no value. You'll have to swallow that, chew it, and look at it, and chew it again, and realize that if it is not out of time, it is not of value. Now, I don't know how you're going to do that, because you've got 24 hours of time that you live and swim in the illusion throughout the day and night. And you think that I'm doing better now, I've got more understanding now, I'm making progress, and yet it's all illusion. There's no progress in time. Now what are you going to do about that? How can we talk to each other, meditate with each other, and learn that in time nothing we do is of importance, and then go right on doing it? How do we face that? So I'm going to have a meditation with you now on getting out of time and staying there for a length of time until a part of you comes into the experience of the Spirit of God, which is timeless, until a part of you feels the resurgence of energy, the absence of any mortality, the absence of a me that can stumble, and of a me that can make errors, and of a me that can make mistakes, such as thinking because this was a wonderful day and I had wonderful experiences that I'm on the right track. The only right track is going to be the knowledge that I have lived in the Spirit of God as myself. That Spirit of God which frees me from the mortal illusion. I have touched it for a minute. I have touched it for an hour. I will touch it this week, all day. I will find that Spirit to live in, to not think in it, to receive from the Father that guidance which is indispensable to the experience of being the living Son of God. Not in time. Where can the Son of God be in time? Not even in space, but in the kingdom of my Father, in the timeless, spaceless kingdom of eternity. And you can be in eternity in a moment. You are in eternity the moment you are the realized Spirit of God. It's no journey. You don't have to pick yourself up and go there. You have to be the Spirit of God, and you are in eternity. How often a day do you find yourself in eternity? How often do you try to live in eternity? How often do you ask yourself, am I Joe Smith? Am I Mary Jones? Or am I the Spirit? And why am I not the Spirit? Do I have human responsibilities? How can I better fill them than being the Spirit of God? Each one of us is a committee of one to look at the world of effect, to look at the world of ugliness and war, to look at all the things that make up the opposites of the world we still are in, and see that the only one who will change that will have to be you. You are the sole reason that Spirit is on the earth. It comes to the earth, and it comes out into visibility in this world when you acknowledge it. When you acknowledge that the Spirit of the Lord is who I am, and thou seest me, thou seest the Spirit. Every moment of courage that you display to confess to spiritual integrity, to spiritual life, is a victory which will place you in the forefront of the movement from matter to spirit, which now is the principal activity of those who know that they are going forward. They're not going to cite little rules to live by, rules of conduct. They're not going to tell people how to act with each other. They're going to live as the Spirit, because that says everything I want to say. How will you do this? You go to the grocery store, you buy a package of something or other, and you go home with it. How will that be converted into a spiritual activity? You go to the office, you do other chores. You've got to convert that to a spiritual activity. Your children come home from school, They've either done something you like or they've done something you didn't like. How can we convert that into a spiritual activity? How can those children say, there's something different about my mom? I don't know what it is, but I like it. There's something different about my dad. He's not like the other men. He's doing something different. Are we making the turn for those to follow us? That's the responsibility we face. And if we have to give an entire lifetime to making that turn, that's something that we should feel the privilege of doing. For there's nothing more rewarding than walking in the footsteps of the Father. Now, what was different about Jesus? He could face any challenge and face it with the certainty that whatever he did, he was doing the Father's will, and that therefore he was doing what was right. He faced death on numerous occasions. There was nothing to fear. He was in the Father's kingdom doing right. He faced people who objected to what he said, what he did. But he faced them. He knew what was right. Do you? Are you willing to face any situation and do what you have to do in the knowledge that it is a divine activity and you must do it? We ought to be an influence in the world. We're not crawling through it and hiding. Now let's say what it's like to be spiritual, to live spiritually, to refuse to live any other way. And the first step of it is to acknowledge Spirit as the only presence around you. I'm sorry I can't have a conversation with you while you act mortal, because that's not who you are. Why pretend? Be what you are. And so you're converting everyone to Spirit. That's your attitude. You can reprimand them publicly, but that's your attitude. You convey this in your manner. You are Spirit, and I will not converse with you as matter because I know who you are. And if we can't converse, we won't. But if you're matter, the next moment you'll be dead matter, or sick matter, some kind of matter that isn't working correctly, and I expect my friends to be living Spirit. So you've got standards, and there's one standard that you uphold. They must be Spirit, and I must be Spirit, no matter what they look like. Now, what are the qualities of Spirit? You don't think this friend is very intelligent. Well, that's because you're not seeing him as a Spirit. He's all wise. And if you don't know that he's all wise, how can you accept him as Spirit? How can you lift him up with the knowledge that he is Spirit? So now you're talking to everybody you know, and you're saying to yourself, this waitress is the Spirit of God. This shoemaker is the Spirit of God. This salesman is the Spirit of God. And I am lifting them up because I will not accept them in a material way. It takes a lot of effort. And after the first 20 minutes, you'll give up. You say, oh, well, I can't hold on to that. And yet you will hold on, because you will quickly see that in holding them in the Spirit, you are holding yourself there too. And that's how you become spiritually acclimated. It's very difficult to make the swing from matter to spirit. But once you begin with everyone you see, and you hold them all in the invisible light. They won't even know it. But that's your job. And that job was given to you by the Father. Do not hide your light under a bushel. Don't go around in the material world and bury yourself in matter, as if you were one of them. No, you're not one of them. You're one in the Spirit, and they are not who they appear to be. So you're an influence, and you've got to accept being an influence. You've got to try it for a week, seeing everyone in the light. Now, while you're seeing them in the light, you'll know when you're not seeing them in the light, and it's up to you to make a change. The moment you are agreeing with him about his problems, his physical ailments, whatever his problems may be, you are not in the light. You're not seeing him in the light. You've drawn a shade. You are commiserating. You said, well, let's get out of spirit now and let's work on our problems. What's happening? We don't want to stumble. We don't want to fall by the wayside. We don't want to walk with a fellow who can't travel in spirit. But we can't tell him we're lifting him in spirit. It's our job to do it in a way that no one knows. Your motivation will be unknown to the person you're lifting. But your real motivation is that you want to act as the Spirit of God yourself. Now, I don't find many people doing this, or many people aware that it must be done. That's how we're going to turn the world around. You are going to turn your share of the world around. I'm going to turn my share. And while we do it, we will be changing ourselves into the divine image and likeness. I tell you it's hard work. I know it's hard. What's wrong with hard work? Easy work is no more fun. We've got a job to do, and the job is to live in the Spirit. And everyone has to help another. If your wife is ahead of you in the Spirit, it's her job to lift you. If your child is ahead of you in the Spirit, it's his job to lift you. If you're ahead of someone else, it's your job to lift them. I don't care how you do it. You can learn one way to do it, and if it doesn't work, you learn another way. But every day, in every way, you are lifting this human world out of humanhood. That's a task. And I'm sure that as you try it for a week, you'll certainly stumble a lot, but you'll be much better for it. Much better. You'll find you have the capacity to lift yourself better. because we all fall into an easy way where I won't try to do this for a while, it just feels better. There's no effort. I just go along. Let's put the effort forth. Let's be determined. Some people I know have gone so far as to keep a diary. In the diary they list what my objectives for the week are, my spiritual objectives. At the end of the week they consult the diary. Fortunately, sometimes they find that they made progress. But it's written down. What they accomplish is recorded, and if they make progress, and then make more progress, and then more progress, it is not a long time before they find they have succeeded in moving away from a certain stubbornness in spiritual awareness which has prevented them from finding the freedom and the capacity to give themselves to a higher quality of life than they have entertained in the past. And then they come into these principles which tell them, now you're not to live in time. They try to integrate that with their effort to lift people around them in spirit. And they find that when they succeed, the people are lifted. The problem was that they were doing it in time. Every time you live in time, your steps take a longer time to get there. 100 to 1. But the moment you are out of time, yourself, your scope of operations changes completely. First of all, you have a wider radius to work in. And then you have an unusual acceptance of the non-reality of time, and that makes you move through space with a speed that is sometimes very amazing. You find you've done things before you realize it, and you don't know why, but you have not found time to be opposing you. It simply wasn't there. I don't know if you've had that experience, but it's worth cultivating. To realize that there's no time opposing you, except the time that you invent to oppose yourself. You can actually do in 1 minute what a person can do in an hour who's living in time. And you can't measure it in minutes because when you're not in time, you're not measuring that way. The brain works immediately. It doesn't weigh things. It gets right to the crux of whatever it's about. You'll find that capacity to think very clearly, because when you're not in time, your thoughts are God's thoughts and they're not yours. God's computer is very different than yours. You find yourself thinking things you couldn't think of as a human being. And you'll find yourself discarding things that you would think of as a human being, which are of no point at all. You're only dealing with that which is a necessary part of living. If you're a scientist working on children in some respects, some unknown quantities, and you find there's no reference material available on your subject, if you're able to live outside of time, you'll find that something which is not reference material, but which substitutes for it, which is the parent, in fact, of what the reference material is all about. You find you're right into the fact that you need to know. You're in the stage of maybe an invention. There's no reference material of any kind. But you are there with that kind of thought which is not human. And there are no walls to barricade itself. You find you get to the nub of the issue. You may take a mother out of difficulties in childbirth with new laws. You may take a man out of difficulties in certain substances that he's stuck with. Because all these substances only appear to be substances. They're made of attitudes of people, whereas in the center of their being there's no form, there's no matter. There's light, pure light. And when you get to the light of any subject, you've got what is there instead of what appears there. And this works swiftly. When you're working in the light, you're not in a human mind. You're not in human thought patterns. And the light can take you swiftly wherever you need go. If you're thinking from that level, that is not a thought level. That's a Christ level. You pierce whatever is necessary in an instant. Simply turn your attention to it. I'm trying to get to the point where we use what we do and then we see how it betters us and betters those around us. The inventor is not a man who follows in others' footsteps. He invents by means of stepping out of their footsteps. The inventive mind becomes the searching spirit. And then the searching spirit becomes the inner vision of the Father in all things you do. You are behind matter. And that's a good place to be, because the matter which men behold becomes a problem to them. They cannot find out its secrets. And somewhere along the line they're stuck. But when you work in the light, you are matter that has not become matter yet to men. Whoever works in the light works in the realm of the so-called human impossible. Things done in the light always take hundreds of years before they come into the material world of solidity. Every mystic who works in the light produces many activities which ultimately become human inventions. And if you're of an inventive mind, in any phase of life, if you paint that way, if you do your crockery that way, if you do anything in the light, you'll find your speed is so much quicker, your depth of penetration so much deeper. You're working in cause rather than effect. Try to find your light before you go into the difficult subjects that must be understood, and your light will decipher them for you. Some people have this uncanny ability to do it. I suppose the people who live in that light are a rarity and can't be understood by human beings, but occasionally one finds his way into the human world. You might say Leonardo da Vinci type. The things he could see that could not be seen with the eyes were the things that made his inventions. As Edgar Casey, the things he could see when he was unconscious. There's a man who wrote a book, and he wrote about the incarnations of Jesus Christ. And he based it on I forget what Edgar Casey called it, but he had these moments when he saw this incarnation in various lifespans. And he was unconscious when he saw these things. He was living in the light. And he can tell you from the year 0 to this present year what incarnation Jesus had, who he was, what he did, where he did it, and give you the name. And you'll find all of them have been listed in the Bible, so that it'll tell you that Jesus Christ was the man who handled the affairs for such and such a man in such and such a year. And you'll see that this man became famous because he was guided by Jesus Christ. But his name wasn't Jesus Christ then, it was a Latin name. And he'll go right down. The man's name of the writer was Hurst, H-U-R-S-T. There's a book out by him years ago, and the first chapter is every incarnation of Jesus Christ, at least 14 or 15. I find it very interesting to observe that something about this spirit was always serving men or women. There was something about this Spirit of Christ that was always in operation as an important position of value to a man or a community. until it ultimated in the Jesus Christ experience. I mention this fact because the people who we don't see, who serve, are always, as it were, underground. The actions that they take are not visible, not normal to us, not often we are aware of them, but they are always active in our life. And you may find that there are a number of such individuals who are active in your life unknown to you. And it's worth taking time to investigate. The way you do it is you go within for a period of time until something is established that is a little different than the outer personality. And then, when it is established, you ask it the questions you wanted to know. And you might be surprised that its contacts in the inner universe are totally unknown to the outer universe until there is this inner questioning, and it will tell you that I serve this one and that one, and he's known as the spirit of so-and-so, and this one is the spirit of so-and-so. And as you do this, you find that a world is opening up that you hadn't suspected, a world that's very ready to help you. You're not just groveling on the outside. Don't forget, you've got an inner life. And it's there for a reason. It's very important. It's what your outer springs from. And it's a vast library. You can live in that. There was a man who served for many years. He was transplanted from one of the countries, it may have been Czechoslovakia, and he preceded some of our American people in the electrical industry. He knew things in his consciousness that nobody could know. He could lock things in his consciousness. He could lock a few textbooks in his consciousness and refer to them at all times, and did. He spoke to birds. He found out their secrets, and they gave him the information he wanted. He wasn't seeking anything in the world. But he was a force in our work. In the early days of electricity, a number of inventors borrowed from him. He had other ideas that were useful but not followed up by men. An uneducated man with more knowledge of electricity than any man on the earth. And it wasn't book learning. He got his learning from electricity. He could build a complete plant with the information he gathered from within. I'm saying that there are depths of knowledge which are ready to be probed and can only be probed by one who does not live in the material world completely. But one has to look deeper inside oneself to find that connection between his inner self and the invisible world. It's there. It's waiting to be connected up. And it's waiting to feed you all kinds of information. In our world, we find that Jesus was one of the foremost exponents of that. Nothing he did in the visible world was not done first in the invisible world. Does that give you a clue as to what you can do? If you rely on what you know, you're stuck with the visible world. And when you know that the invisible world born of spiritual understanding contains the power that is behind the seed of the flower, the power that is behind all of the visible motion, the power that moves the universe, the power that is in the universe that will remain here when all the visible power disappears. It is here now, and we can tap it. We can tap it to perform miracles we would never dream exist. Someone is going to tap these miracles. I'll be flying in the sky without an airplane. Someone will tap these miracles and will be talking without a wire. Why? Because spirit is always in touch with itself. Spirit in Nova Scotia is spirit in Ireland. Spirit is one. Spirit is in touch with itself instantaneously. And when you are one with Spirit, any part of your being can send information to any part of your being wherever you are. And there is no limitation to where you are. I'm trying to loosen up the material world around us and not see it as it's seen. A world is concealed, an infinite world, a world that is not concealed to one who has not formed material concepts. A world that welcomes you because it's the Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. And the kingdom has 4 dimensions. That 4th is the one we're looking for. We know about 3. In that 4th dimension, Spirit lives. In that 4th dimension, your spirit moves outside of the normal boundaries of your world. It widens you, deepens you in every possible way. And no matter how far you go, there's still further to go, because it is endless. No matter how long you live, there's still further to live, because that is eternal. When you pass from age to agelessness, you will do it through the Spirit. That's why it's so important that we do not take Spirit for granted, but we experiment and try to get inside. We're going to find some secrets that open things up and teach us. Perhaps we should look closely now at what Jesus Christ achieved during his lifetime. We're going to have to just work with one span of 2,000 years. We'll forget that he lived before then. He probably did more before then than after then. But we'll dwell with the last 2,000. Where was the world before Jesus? Where did it go after Jesus? What influence was he? Did he change our way of living, our way of thinking? Did he change what we can accomplish? Reading books to become spiritual. You've got to do a lot of meditating. But there are many things you can do that the Spirit is waiting to do for you. And I think one of the most important is the questions that you ask the Spirit. For instance, I feel stymied. I'm not getting anywhere fast enough. And I say to the Spirit, I wish you'd prescribe a method of expediting my understanding of the infinite way, of speeding it up, and deepening my understanding, and so on. And then you're wondering, well, now, is Spirit listening to me? I mean, I just can't talk and expect Spirit to hear every word. What has Spirit got to do with mortals? And that's right. What has Spirit got to do with mortals? So you say, well, then I've got to speak spiritual language. But I don't know the language. Now, certainly, Spirit has a method of teaching you, and you've got to learn how that method is in order to enter into a relationship with Spirit. Then it all boils down to, you've got to be in the Spirit to learn from the Spirit. You can't be a mortal being asking questions of Spirit and expecting Spirit to deliver answers. You've got to be a Spirit. And you have one advantage. That's who you are. And you've got to act like the one you are instead of like the one you're not. Now, when Spirit hears from Spirit, how do I enter into deeper meditations or anything of that nature? You'd be surprised how the answers come to you. So the first step in phrasing a question to Spirit is to renounce your mortality for the while at least. You've got to realize that a mortal cannot speak to spirit. If you want spirit to hear you, you'll have to first transform. And transforming is very simple. You get out of human thought. And that's difficult for some people because they have to be still to be out of human thought. And yet, when they're still, something takes the place of that stillness. And that something is going to be spirit. So before you question spirit, please take 2 or 3 minutes of silence. Do it again. Do it several times until you feel that you are sufficiently spiritual in content and you've emptied out a way so that there's no confusion, no conflict, and now you are the Spirit speaking to the Spirit or thinking with the Spirit, and you're saying, Father, I want to be your son more than anything in the world. Now I would like to know what to do in this case or in that case. And I would like to solve my problems spiritually. I would like to do everything spiritually. And you may think, well, nobody's hearing me. But you'll find after a while that your words landed in a place where they could do the most good. And you'll find your invisible self is shaping an answer to the questions you have asked. And that shaping of the answers comes out as a physical act, a new book, a new place to go and study, new friends, and immediately, in various ways, you are answered by the Spirit which knoweth your needs. But remember, never start the conversation without first being transformed to your spiritual identity. Spirit hears spirit. That's important to know. And if you make strides of progress that are beyond your belief, it will be wonderful, and you will be able to then give some good advice to other people who are on a spiritual path. To be spirit is to be first not in the human chain of thought. To be quiet, to wait for the still small voice. When it doesn't come, be patient. Try again. When it doesn't come, try again. You've got to establish a contact. You've got to hear that voice. Usually it isn't so quick that you can say, I can do it instantly. But you'll find that in a daytime, when you have a meditation and then another one, somehow something happens cumulatively. And you may find that 4 hours later, for some reason, you feel like you're in the Spirit. Whereas when you started out, you didn't. And then you'll find at the end of the day, you have had a spiritual experience. Now, when this is repeated again and again and again, you find it happens quicker. You won't have to go through various transformations that you think you're going through. You can go directly to the Spirit, and it will speak to you. You can wake up in the morning, and before you open your eyes, Spirit's talking to you. It takes a while to catch on, but when it catches on, it won't let go. Now, when you have a spiritual companion within you, what's going to stop you? The Spirit knows everything. So establish that spiritual companion. Give it any name you want. Some people don't even have a name for it. They just know it's myself. But whether you say it's the spirit of Enoch returned to me, or pick anyone you want, whatever it identifies itself to be, or if it's my own spirit, you can't live without it, believe me. You just go round in circles doing human things. So everyone needs a spiritual companion, whether it's the identity of themselves or the identity of others. If you're trying to live without your spiritual companion, you'll be finding many lonely times. Now, when you have a spiritual companion, remember, you have certain responsibilities. When you act out of spirit, instantly your spiritual companion is gone, and maybe for a short while, maybe for a long while, depending on the degree to which you acted out of spirit. I can imagine a man living a certain way that spirit would have nothing to do with automatically. It'd be hard for that man to get back into the spirit. But living a certain way, knowing that the spirit is always with me, gives you a great deal of confidence. A confidence that you find is either misplaced or is placed correctly. And if it's placed correctly, if you have obeyed what Spirit expected you to obey, you'll find the answers are deep and satisfying. And you can always depend on them. It doesn't have to be very formal. You start to think, what am I going to do? And the right idea comes to you, and it's motivated spiritually. Or you have a puzzling problem, a life problem, you might say, something that will determine your direction. It'll take a while, but it comes to you in a different way. Sometimes the answer isn't a direct answer. The answer can come to you in any way that Spirit knows. You might find suddenly you're moving. You might find that you're changing occupations, or you're changing friends, or changing relationships. And it's all an answer to your question, but it may not appear so to you. Until one day, the fruition of that spiritual question you asked comes to a head, and you realize it's been answered. It was answered these 3 months. The way it went about its answer was unusual, but it was answering my question. Now you should know that you have this friend in spirit. And it's more than a friend, it's with you every moment. You should never feel alone under any circumstances, because Spirit is always with you. Now I say, it can be your spirit, it can be another spirit, because they're all one spirit, you see. Now this spirit, for instance, might be inclined to help in your art venture, whereas another spirit might be more proficient in something else. So you might change off spirits from time to time, too. But you've got to have a spiritual contact in whatever you do to do it right, until you yourself are able to move spiritually. That's a transference of human methods. It's a reliance on the invisible activity of spirit, and always the invisible activity of spirit is guided by the one human, the one major divine source. The God of all is the Father of Spirit. And even though you may not be talking to God directly, when you talk to Spirit, you're talking to God. Every divine fact, every divine assistant comes from the one same source. Now we have these helps, and those who have used them know the reality of these helps. And they know that these invisible helpers, called divine spirit, are always working for the betterment of those they help. They cannot do wrong. Unless you happen to get a brain idea and you're tuned into the wrong area, you'll find you can do very wrong. Now all this is a soul activity. You can't talk to spirit through your brain. How do you do soul activity? These are simple tools that you must learn. You've got to have a soul activity to talk to spirit. God can't hear the human mouth or the vocal cords. It's that extra dimension. Now you've got to figure out how to use it, how to find it, how to live in it. And the only way you can figure it out is not by something I tell you. Because you cannot borrow. You've got to work with your own soul. And your soul is a God activity. You've got to get out of your mind to do it. And then when you're out of your mind, no one is going to advise you on soul activity, because you'll be in soul. It knows where to go, what to do. You're transferring your operations from the world of mind and matter to your soul, and you still say, where is my soul? How do I get my soul to work? You'll find the answer when you stop using your mind. That which is trying to get through will find its interference has been removed. Now, if you've accomplished nothing but learning where your soul is in the total invisible, and your soul is not a size, you don't have size F or size B or size C, your soul is the invisible universe. So is mine. Your soul is without limitation in size or in capacity. And everyone has access to their soul. But you've got to get within and stop thinking. You've got to feel it. You've got to know it. And finally, you've got to be it. You'll find your living soul is your reality. You are the living soul. While you're seeking to find it, you're pushing it away. Your soul only comes from the deepest silence. As you dwell deeply in the divine silence, something steals into your consciousness. And this will become what you utilize in your efforts to meet those who are kinship with you, those who are walking where you are walking, and to meet those ideas in the spiritual world that are the food for a full life. I'm trying to make you go inside. People have certain ideas that they are stuck with. They think, I like this and I like that. I don't like this and I don't like that. They go inside, and those ideas never enter their mind. They don't even think about them. Their likes and dislikes all disappear. In the soul realm, you find a different you than you have known. You find a you that has a capacity for things you have not known you were adept at. You find the tendencies of your soul are so far outweigh the tendencies of your mind that you say, why didn't somebody tell me about this before? I have 1,000 possibilities. There was Peter, the last man on earth you'd ever figure for a soul individual. He was converted. He must have seen something that he was missing and that he wanted. Maybe he saw it in his friends. Maybe in certain qualities that appealed to him. But this man never had an idea that he could be an invisible being. It would have been ridiculous to even suggest it to him. Come on, I'm not going to be an invisible being. I'm Peter the fisherman. I'm a tough character, you know. I'm all bone and muscle. Would he recognize what he became? And how could he become that? Now, we say it only took 3 years in the ministry of Jesus Christ. And we've been in this 10, 15, 20, 30. Look how long it takes us. Do you think that if we walked with Jesus Christ, it would be possible in 3 years to convert from a hardy fisherman to a soul being? Those are the facts. Why, it would take 3 years to convince me to try. So you see, it isn't what you are, who you are, what you're accustomed to. It's what you decide you're going to be. And when you find a sufficient motivation to find the soul universe, whatever the motivation might be, when it happens, in 3 years, one man learned how to walk spiritually out of this world. And he wasn't a very good prospect either. So never think for a moment that it's a difficulty. It's only a difficulty for the one who is fighting it all the way. John walked in pretty close to the beginning when he had these tendencies in him. It takes a short while when you're concentrating on the direction and the truth, and when your feelings run high, and it helps to have a good teacher. You've got to have someone you walk with and respect. The lone wolves work a little harder. Believe me, when you have a tape group, you find one or two in there who are devoted to the Word, and you can mesh gears with them. You do much better than when you do it all alone. Find no help from anyone else, no rhythm. So look up tape groups in your community. If you don't have one, start one. Get to be the center of something with that driving inner force. Go within and stay there. Whatever you come out with will give you a new direction and a new depth, regardless of your age, young or old. There ought to be a tape group in every reasonable community. And if you can't find many in yours, and it's a small community, a tape group is formed of 2 people. Maybe you'll get 3 or 4. But 2 people who know the truth are doing better than 1. They always help each other. Become not only immersed in your own desires, but in your friends, your community. Become the center. Become the Christ activity in your community in whatever you do. Being the center of that activity makes you a very important person, because Christ will control your life, and the life of many people around you will be enriched. It will tell you what to do with children. It will tell you what to do with the older folks, what they expect and what they need spiritually. It will guide you in every step of the way. We're going to find that the work from this point is going to accelerate. It will accelerate in many ways, and you will find it so in your private life. You will find people coming to you for help that you hadn't expected. Because once you become a spiritual being, not a friendly fellow, not a nice fellow, not the sweetest guy in the world, but a spiritual being. Once you convert to spirit, you become a hub. Spirit will use you. It will use you as a hub. And that's how you'll know you're in spirit. When spirit is the essence of your being, there will be a force created. An invisible force drawing others to you. And you like that force. Because when they draw others to you, there will be something that you need too. You will need that force working toward you as well as away from you. This is an appeal to learn that the nature of your being is spirit. You can't get enough of it. Too long we have waited. Now, while you're working as spirit, you may not notice it, but you're not working in time. You're doing nothing about consciously stepping out of time. You're working in spirit. But that takes you out of time. And so there's less of an obstruction, less of an illusion, more of an influence, and then you are finally finding that in your quiet way, you are doing as much your community, your country, your world, as the disciples of Jesus were doing. Too many of us are not needed, and we're not needed because we have nothing to offer. We're too busy giving advice. People need our spirit. Let them have it. You've got all you need to spare. It's running overboard. Let people see your spirit, give them your spirit, share your spirit, live in the spirit. You are very necessary when you are living in your spirit. In a way, this class goes high, but it comes down to fundamentals. We're converting every individual we can into the knowledge that spirit is his substance and his life. Nothing else about him is truth. You'll walk out into a world which knows little about the spirit, but you walk out silently, and what you do is motivated by spirit, and it will conquer the world. Let us meditate now. Our final meditation for the seminar. And let us in our meditation know that I am the living Spirit of God. I will always be, 1,000,000 years from now, exactly what I am. Perhaps more so if I learn how to let my spirit flow without neglecting it, turning my back on it, misusing it, or trying to misuse it. That I am a spiritual being. I do not live in a lifetime. I live an eternity. That to be a spiritual being, I must fulfill my responsibilities. So I am a spiritual being in my conception, in my understanding, in my appreciation of what the life is all about. I'm not it for 23 and a half hours a day, but for 24. There is no time in my life. I have grown beyond the belief in time. Spirit overflows all there is. And my spirit is here, but it is also around the corner. My spirit is up the street. My spirit is in the sky. My spirit is right where the whirlwind was. Nobody saw it. But my spirit was there and is there. Wherever there is any space, my spirit is. Wherever there is no space, my spirit is. Wherever the world is, my spirit is. I am omnipresent spirit. I, personally, am really omnipresent spirit. And my friend is too. My friend is my spirit, and I am my friend's spirit, because we are the only spirit there is. I am that spirit. And I share that knowledge with every I there is. And you are I. You are the I of the child, the I of the adult, even the I of the corpse. You are I everywhere. And if you don't forget it, your I will see you through every situation in the spiritual universe. There are no places in the spiritual universe where I is not welcome. If you see a situation which has in it the appearance of being an unfriendly situation, convert it to I. You are momentarily unaware of the identity of the situation. All that is there is I. I, the living Spirit of God. On the crowded freeway, I am. You see cars, but in your moment of illumination, as you realize that all there is I, you'll find the cars are moving in a different pace, in a different harmony. And try it if you don't believe it. Just your realization of spiritual presence, and everything changes to a pattern, moves to a rhythm, whether it's the sky or the ocean. I move into tomorrow's day, the one behind the activity that I put forth is the invisible I. My spirit will move my vacuum cleaner tomorrow, but it won't move the vacuum cleaner. It doesn't know there's a vacuum cleaner. But it is the energy of me moving the vacuum cleaner. It is the energy of the Spirit of the Lord that moves me through the day. And therefore I will not be tired. When I am tired, I have moved on human energy. When I am tireless, I have used divine energy. Try it. See for yourself. When I use divine energy, my problems are quickly dispatched. When I use human energy, some of the problems remain. Try it. Use divine energy. Find that level which goes beneath the mind, which wells up into the mind, and you will find that your energy is unlimited. You have power. You have unlimited spiritual power. You'll use some of it, and you'll say, well, that's enough for today. Well, maybe that's good sense. But you'll find you have enough energy to do what you must do before you are finished with it. Whatever you have to do, you will find your spiritual energy will fulfill that requirement. Whatever you have to do that is not spiritual, that is in the human world, you cannot expect your spiritual energy to do. You've got to find the line which says this is a needless task and this is a required task. Now you may be on a job somewhere where you're doing a lot of needless tasks. Spirit will recognize your need. The line between spirit and mental energy is a very subtle one. But you can be sure that spirit understands. Transfer your activities, if possible, to spiritual doing, and you'll find that you are not the tired, worn-out individual that you appear to be at times. You can look at certain people and you know, why don't they ever get tired? For the simple reason that they find a great joy in doing the things they're doing because they're fulfilling a spiritual need for themselves as well as for others. They can't tire that way. So I'm waking up in the morning and I'm going to bed with the knowledge that Spirit is here. Spirit's going to bed. Spirit's waking me up. Spirit's taking the day in over tomorrow. All my activities will fly out from that spiritual knowledge. But if I forget tonight, and I wake up in the same mental attitudes I went to bed with, it'll just take a little while longer before you find the spiritual center again. And ultimately you should reach the place where your spiritual center has displaced all other activity. To your surprise, you'll find you really believe and know that you are Spirit. I won't say give it 30 days, because it can be done sooner than that. Try to remember that what you do spiritually will live with you and be there when you have finished the task, and ultimately it will supplant your belief that you are not Spirit. When you find you are Spirit and can't get out of the belief, you'll be a different self than the one you are. Well, our God experience for the moment, we'll have to stop at this point, but the God experience continues at every point in our lives if we walk in the Spirit. I wish you a pleasant journey home. Thank you for coming, and I hope we have touched each other's lives to some degree, and we'll touch each other again. Thank you.
Hey everyone, thanks for tuning into our channel. If you're enjoying the content, don't forget to hit that like button below. It really helps us out. And why not share this video with your friends? Spread the word and help us reach more people. Lastly, make sure to subscribe to our channel and turn on the notifications so you never miss a new video from us. Thanks for watching and see you next time.